All of us are uncomfortable with some or the other body part of us. But what if you are uncomfortable living in your whole body? What if your body feels like a trap? What if you feel like a prisoner in your own body? Where are you going to escape? Where are you going to go? Today, to discuss this very thing, this very trap, is with us ace designer Saisha Shinde. Hey Saisha.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for being willing to share your story, your truth.
My pleasure. And this is also my first interview, by the way. So.
Really?
Yes.
I came upon Oprah's interview of Elliot Page.
Yeah.
And for 3 days I couldn't sleep after that because we interact with people with the skill set that they bring to the table. But when I saw Elliot's interview, I was in shock. I was like, what is this? How torturous can this be for a person? And that's when this whole idea, and then I saw your interview on the cover of Bombay Times.
When Elliot came out on Instagram, that's how he came out first before the Oprah interview. You know, like you mentioned, you couldn't sleep for 3 days. And I was alive for 3 days. Because for me, I had a figure that showed me that
It's possible.
It's possible. As a trans person, there's not a lot of people that you can take inspiration from. People who show that you can thrive. So for me to see this public figure who's an Oscar-nominated actress now coming out so openly and so beautifully on Instagram gave me the strength that, you know what, I'm going to do this. So Elliot changed a lot of things for me, yeah.
So going back to 1981 when you were born in a conservative Maharashtrian family, everyone was elated that there's a boy and a tall strapping lad at that. And how did it start for you? How did you start to feel that the inside of you doesn't match the outside of you?
Whenever one's asked, when did you know? How did you know? These are questions that you probably can never answer because you're just born with this, right? It's like asking a straight woman, so when did you know that you're a straight woman? Mm-hmm. Now, I was also in an all-boys school, which made it even more tougher because there was absolutely no one similar to me. By similar, I mean no girls like me because I always thought I was a girl. Which is where understanding who I am, what I am was even more complicated. Of course, that's when all the teasing starts, the bullying starts. So I was pretty much a loner through my childhood.
But what was the bullying and the teasing like?
Now, I wouldn't say I was effeminate, nor was I very feminine looking, but I had effeminate features, like I had soft skin, contrary to what it is right now. My mom used to make sure that I had that sadhana cut, is what you used to call it back then. So I was an easy target because of all of that. And then you've got your run-of-the-mill words, which do come, which is your baila, your chakka, your this, your that. And on top of it, I was a podgy kid as well. So then you add in the fat as well in there. And I remember I used to always stand near the railings almost as if I'm in jail to get out. And the sad part was, even though I would get out after school, the entire colony would tease me as well. So by the time I'm in my house, I'm teased to the max by everyone that could possibly tease me.
What was that like for you inside?
You know, there was this little feeling of I'll get back to them one day. And that get back to them was I'll probably become more masculine. So then they'll stop the teasing. When they see me as this, as you mentioned, this strapping lad with muscles and fame and everything, then they'll know who I was. Little did I know that is not what I wanted to do eventually, of course. But yeah, as you mentioned, while all of that was going on, there was this feeling of I'm going to get them one day. It was never depression or sadness or anxiety, because I think all that energy went in making me. Like Swapnil in the early 20s only focused on making sure the walk is masculine, making sure what you wear is masculine. I almost became like a contradiction to what I am now.
Puberty is hard enough for everyone. I know that I had a huge issue with developing breasts growing up. What was it like for you? What was puberty like for you?
You know, it's so strange you say that for you it was the fact that you had the breasts, and for me it was the fact that I'm not getting the breasts. You know, Because obviously by 14, 15, you sort of have an understanding of what's happening.
Yes.
When puberty hits you, you get attracted to the same sex. I mean, for me back then, same sex. Like, of course, I would be attracted to the boys in school. But the teasing and the abuse was so strong that just had no time for any of that. Like, I had to sort of shield myself from all of that. So puberty literally came and went.
So the bullying and the harassment, what form did it take? You said that you were called all these names, but other than that, I mean, was there physical abuse? Because you're big and strong, and could you like defend yourself? And do you remember an incident?
Defending yourself doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be big in size or have the muscle. It sort of is very intrinsic, right? And I always was a girl inside in that sense. So for me to think of physically getting back to the boys was something that didn't even cross my mind. But I remember that they used to shove me or push me, and I've had a surgery on my leg because of that as well. And they just like pushed me in the bench, which injured my knee. So obviously when the parents would ask, or the teacher would ask, the reason would be there was just some fight. But I remember this though, that my perspective was not really heard. Oh, he's that shy kid who doesn't really. It's okay. But a lot of the boys in my school, they were abused even more. I mean, I did see one of them get molested in front of me, but there's nothing you could do. Like, even if you had to go to the professors, what do you tell them? There was no way to explain it,
Yeah.
and there was no form of education to the teachers as well back then.
Yeah.
For them, it was just another effeminate boy. So, as I said, for me, the bullying didn't stop in school. It was pretty much everywhere you go, because you are different,
Yeah.
or the idea of society that this is different.
And so, after the bullying and the harassment, when post-puberty you came into your own, what was that moment like?
So this, right when school got done, this is where internet sort of was just coming in, like sort of creeping in slowly. And because I was attracted to men, that's the first thing that I searched for. And the terminology for that was that you're gay. So I accepted the fact that I'm attracted to men and thus I'm gay. Then of course college came in and the bullying continued there as well, the teasing continued there as well. But because I came from a privileged family, I sort of then gained the confidence to give it back.
And giving it back to...
By money. Like I would show off, oh, I've come in this big car and I've got the big bed, the best phones and this and that. So that became sort of the beginning.
Defense.
Like my defense mechanism, and that also was the beginning of my rebellious nature. Sort of the angry young man. So people would just be scared of me. That was the beginning, yeah. And because I'm tall and I'm broad, people would stay away from me. Oh, he'll do something, he'll do something. Once that was done, I came in NIFT. Now I always knew that I wanted to get into fashion. So once I came in NIFT is when I accepted myself wholly, that I'm a gay man. And I came out to everyone as well.
What was that
To my
like?
friends, and oh, that was another experience altogether. Because, I worked so hard to be masculine and to look masculine that people thought I was straight. And all my girlfriends were obviously, I mean, I don't sound pompous, but they were disheartened, of which around one or two of my girlfriends were really angry with me. They thought that I was lying because I didn't want to be friends with them or I didn't want to have a relationship with
Oh
them.
my God.
So that was the most difficult part about understanding the equation of male and female friendships. And from that point on, I sort of had a placard on my head. I'm gay. Just so that I don't affect my relationship with my female friends. But yes, it's predominantly NIFT that I have to thank for my don't give a bleep attitude.
Yeah.
But parents, I came out much later. After my second boyfriend, I came out to my parents.
And what was that like?
The coming out of the boyfriend.
The coming
Both
out.
were equally horrible. My parents basically knew that I wanted to get into fashion and I got into NIFT. And I had become this grungy, gothic, dark person. And then when I came back, I got a reality show. It was a fashion-based reality show and I was the first runner-up there. And through me, they got to see this glamorous world of models and fashion and that is how their eyes sort of opened up to a world.
And created acceptance?
And created acceptance. So I wasn't out to them yet. Your parents, you really underestimate them and you think they don't know. This is the child that they've gotten and they've raised. They know everything. So my parents had an idea of everything. So when I came out, they weren't shocked. And especially my mother, because I was the Raja Beta, so to speak.
That is the other question that I had, that in India, patriarchy is such a thing. Beta paida hona is like the biggest thing ever. So for the beta to then be gay and then eventually transition to Beti, to give up the so-called privilege of being a male in a country where males are worshipped, did that not sort of feel like, in a way, like a step down?
You obviously have to go through intense therapy once you do sort of realize that you might not be gay, or there's something which is not working. And for me, panic attacks had begun and all of that began. So my therapy had started. So yes, part of that therapy I did accept that I'm not gay, that I am trans. And this was about 6 years ago. But I was not willing to sort of accept it wholly. There came a point where I was supposed to be the other person in my head, stopping me from being the person that I want to be. Why was the acceptance becoming so difficult? Why was I not able to sort of accept it and go ahead with my transition? And the reality that came out is, because I've been this man and everyone loves me and adores me, will they love me and adore me as much if I am a woman? That is what came out and shocked me, because I am a progressive person, right? I don't think that way. But that this is at the back of my head. Women are supposed to be this, men are supposed to be that. This has been pushed and shoved, and it still is in our heads. And the moment...
That's such a significant thing that you've just said.
Yep.
Because I'm constantly discussing this and thinking about this in my own head and talking about it to all my friends, that we are patriarchal to another level. We ourselves think of women as being this and men as being this. So you sort of in a way went from here to here in the eyes of society, whereas you're just going from this to this.
Yes. It was scary.
Yeah.
It was scary that I thought that way.
Yeah.
And that I'm progressive, I'm well-traveled, I'm in fashion. And for me to have this thought at the back of my mind was scary.
Yeah.
It was really scary, but also liberating. Because then...
You knew the devil to overcome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then I knew that now for sure I have to.
Yeah.
To prove that this is also equal. So yes, that was the major turning point for me. Like I was shaking when this happened. Like I was numb when this happened with my session.
So could you honestly say that it was your therapist who helped you move past the fear?
Without a doubt. And I think counseling and therapists are so underrated in this country, which is a shame.
Yes.
Because the way they can and change lives and better your lives and give you that much needed push that you need. It's extremely sad that even today, educated friends of mine who I suggest therapy for whatever reasons they have, don't want to go there. Why? Because we don't want to take medication. And why? Because, we are not mad. Why do I need a therapist? I don't need a therapist.
So how did you find out about the gender reassignment surgery? How did this information come to you?
When I sort of kind of accepted who I am, the curiosity built up. And by this time, internet was everywhere. Thank God for internet. So I remember watching videos by this influencer from America called Gigi Gorgeous. And she was obviously a boy who used to do makeup a lot and then transitioned into becoming a woman. And that's when I realized, the technology has gone so far that this is possible. So I read about it all these years. I knew exactly what is cut, what's not, everything. I just didn't want to do it back then. And by this time, professionally as well, I'd reached a really peak position in my life. So for me to do this was not just about getting the surgery, but also sort of preparing myself for society.
So did you decide to go through the surgery process during the lockdown?
The session that I mentioned with my therapist was in the lockdown, right? So there is a proper process to it. It's not like, okay, abhi maine acceptance kar liya, now let's go to the doctor, let's cut ourselves and do it. No, there's a proper process. You need to be on hormone replacement for at least 2 years, minimum, so that it sort of reflects on your body as well. Your body needs to get used to estrogen. it needs to get used to not having testosterone. So when your body sort of settles in with all of this is when you can think of the surgeries.
So how do they stop the testosterone?
So you get, now obviously this is all technical educational information which everyone should take only if a doctor suggested you. You usually start with small doses of estrogen and really small doses of testosterone blockers. These are pills. Once that barrier is crossed is when you start with your injections. So the estrogen also can be in form of injections and the testosterone as well. For me, I was doing really well with just the pills. So the doctor kept me on the pills, but I'm on the testosterone blocker injections for now, and they are for life. That was the one thing that that it's for life, because my body is not going to naturally produce these things, right? And when that sort of went in, then I was like, okay, now let's do the next step, which is the breast surgery. So yeah, the moment the lockdown opened up, I did my first surgery, which of course recently I posted on Insta as well. The main surgery, as I call it, will happen in Bangkok. And just when I decided to do that, the second lockdown happened.
Oh God.
And had to wait. So hopefully by the end of next year or mid next year, I should be completely done with all my surgeries.
Full transformation.
Yes.
But how is your health now?
Oh, it's brilliant. Like, I'm healing really well, touch wood. And you know, again, this is where I would like to mention the underestimating parents ka angle. My mother, who I didn't really share a good relationship with before this, is like my best friend now. And she's so careful of what I eat and whether I'm taking. Again, the patriarchal way of thinking comes in. What I eat so that my skin is a certain way. What I wear so that I look more feminine. Who's made these authoritative decisions that this is how it is supposed to be?
The gender binary.
Yes.
Yeah, that is, I think, something that all of us are learning to grow as in the world right now.
Yes.
That there are not two sexes alone. There is a multiplicity, there's a plurality in that.
No, I understand that femininity is what makes a woman as well, but that's not the only thing that makes a woman.
So I would like to ask, if possible, about the neo-vagina.
So there was a time, especially in the 90s and of course much before that as well, the surgeries were happening, but they were not as advanced as they are now. So a lot of trans women used to die because of it, or they used to have a lot of diseases because of this, a lot of infection. But now the surgeries, the technology in this surgery has gone so far ahead that not only can you have a vagina which looks like a naturally born woman's vagina, it can orgasm like one. And I mean, the only thing that we can't have is a child, because you need a uterus for that. Beyond that, you won't be able to tell. Yeah.
That is amazing.
That's how far the technology has come. Yeah.
So when you go to a hotel to have dinner with friends or whatever, do you use the men's loo or the ladies' loo?
Of course, the women's loo. But I remember the initial days, they were really scary and daunting, because you are not going to be at a fancy place at all points, right? Where they'll understand, oh, that this is a trans person. You will be at certain places where they don't understand it. And as I'm 6'1", I'm broad-shouldered. I'm not womanly, so to speak, in the contrived way. So in the early days, I used to always have a female friend accompany me. But then still, of course, everyone would all the eyes would just turn. What changed for me was my family. One of my cousins' wedding was happening in sort of outskirts of Pune. And my entire khandan was there. And this was also the first time that they were going to see me as a woman. And I went there wearing a lehenga choli and I looked like it was my wedding. But nevertheless, I looked like I'm some person who's arrived. And then I had to use the bathroom. That's when my kaka and my kaki, who were obviously in their 70s, and go, we'll handle it. You just go inside. And that sort of flipped for me. That these people from that generation are letting me be, then you are the one who's supposed to sort of break that now. So every time I enter a loo now, I go with confidence. And so now it's an easy cakewalk for me to go into women's loos.
So in terms of your business, in terms of your work as a designer, has your work been affected in any way?
Of course, this was one of my fears. How would this affect my professional life? But again, this is where I feel the women in my field have really like surprised me and made me so fulfilled, because all the actresses that I worked with personally made sure that their message came to me. Whether it was calls, whether it was messages or DMs, all the women.
Anyone you want to mention in particular?
Madhuri Dixit, of course. Like, I remember I met her. So this was my first outing on a set as a woman. So I asked her that, now can you teach me dance? She's like, yes, anytime. But before this, actually, I'd like to mention, this is when it had not come out in the papers. It was just my close-knit friends in the industry who knew about it, and I had fittings with Aishwarya. So I made sure I told her manager that, get ready, it's not Swapnil who's going to come, it's Saisha who's going to come, and will you be prepared for it and make sure that ma'am is okay, everyone's okay, Aishwarya's okay, because I don't want to shock anyone. So she made sure they've been told about it. And then when I went for the fittings, again, Aishwarya being Aishwarya, she made sure she called me Saisha at every point, and she was calling me the right pronoun every time. And her daughter came in and she introduced me to her daughter as well as Saisha. I mean, the women in this industry are freaking another level amazing.
Yes, yes.
So I was afraid, but I wasn't that afraid because I knew these people. I've worked with them. Some of them are friends with me. So I knew that they are going to be fine. They are going to be accepting. That everything is going to be this accepting, that was a shock for me.
And isn't that lovely?
It's beyond lovely. And again, we really underestimate the people of our country. We think they are not intelligent, they don't get it. They are empathetic to another level.
Yes.
It's been about a year now that I've come out. Gin ki I've had probably 6 negative comments in a year. One thing I would like to mention, very few men have spoken about it from my industry. The straight men, the straight actors, very few, probably 3 have spoken about it. And that's really something one has to think about.
Yeah. What I find people look down upon in women is ambition. They're like, oh my God, she's so ambitious. She's like this, ball buster, this nutcracker. I think that's a great quality in a person.
Yes.
You get shit done. But that's not admired because, that's a very masculine quality. Which makes me ask you that what part of masculinity do you want to retain? Traits do you want to retain? And what part of femininity, because you have a choice?
I would probably take the rebellious side of me being a man a lot more.
What would be your one suggestion to someone who plans to undergo a gender reassignment surgery?
Firstly, get as much counseling as you can because it's really, really helpful. It'll help you make an informed decision. Be open to communication to your parents because you never know, how they'll react to it in a good way, and then you'll be shocked. So communication, I would say, is the most important thing, whether it's to a therapist, whether it's to your friends or to your family.
So I wanted to ask, you said a while ago that you hope, like Elliot's conversation changed my mind and your mind. What would be your hope? What is your mission, or what do you see as part of your life's mission in pushing the trans conversation out there?
I remember actually one of my fans telling me that when I came out to my parents, I showed them your profile and they sort of were like, yeah, chalo.
How satisfying.
How satisfying. For sure, I want to show the Indian parents that a trans person can be successful, can be powerful, can be affluent, can be on the cover of magazines, can do everything, and can be as amazing a child can be. Because every parent wants their child to be successful and happy. And I want that representation to be shown. That definitely is something that I want to push. That we don't need to be this token gimmick. We are people who can be successful as well.
You don't need to answer this question, but I'm going to ask it. And if you don't want me to keep it, I won't keep it.
Just ask it.
No. So my question is, are you single?
Is that seriously your question?
Yes. That is my question.
I am single. What to do now? I have to wait. I'm waiting for Hrithik to call me. Let's see.
I'm sure he will.
He's single now, so might as well.
Yes, of course. Why not?
Hrithik.
So you're 6'1", and that is tall for a man in India. If the man that you fall in love with is shorter than you, how does that matter?
Having dated and been in relationships with 2 short men in the past, I think I've sort of crossed that barrier. I would be okay, but I know for a fact that the man won't be okay. And I'm not going to stop wearing my heels. If he's okay with the 6 inches and the 8 inches and the 10 inches, he's more than welcome. He might be 5'1", I don't care. As long as he's a good human being and he's progressive, I'm fine. So the problem is, you won't find a man who's okay with it. Seldom will you find someone who's okay with it.
Have you found your peace?
Oh, like very much so. I get up happy every day. I remember I wasn't a sad person, right? I had everything going on which was sad or depressing, but I was never a sad person. I was a happy person. But I think my definition of happiness is what is now. What I thought was happiness wasn't happiness. It was like a compromise on happiness. The peace and the state of mind which is calm and confident and happy is now. This is happiness for sure.
Wow. I think it's a very, very important conversation because the pain associated with being trapped, we're all trapped in some way, in notions, in our ideas, in whatever, but imagine being trapped in a body that doesn't feel like it's a home. You know, you could feel uncomfortable one or other part, but to be uncomfortable with the entirety of that can be an enormously, and also on the other side, very liberating once you come to a realization and then transform to that. Much more power to you.
Thank you.
So much of love for your courage and your bravery, and let's get this message out there.
Thank you. Yes.